the Life Midwest podcast, the only podcast where we spend every single week trying to pack a McDonald's-related topic into every episode.
I wish we won it. I really wish we won.
I'm your host, Kevin, and I got my buddy Wes with me here. Thanks for joining us, everybody, on this beautiful, beautiful evening that we got here in the Midwest. And not that you need the weather forecast or weather report from us. That's not what you're here for. So that's not what we're going to give to you. What we are going to give to you is another action-packed episode from the My Friends series. We got our buddy Lenny here with us this week. And Lenny is actually kind of our honorary guest here as our first official patron. We thought it would be a really killer idea to have him on and talk about his perspective and life in the Midwest as someone who grew up and spent a lot of time here. Although he doesn't live here now, which I'm sure we'll get into that later on. But how you doing, man?
I'm good. And I just want to say, at the time of recording this podcast, that I think my opinion matters more than anybody else's that you guys talk to about this, because I'm your first official patron. So suck it, everybody else.
When you buy us tacos, everything else is irrelevant.
You goddamn right.
Yeah. And you too can buy us tacos. We'll talk about that later, coming up after the break, though, and ways you can support us. But yeah, I'm really excited to have Lenny with us. Lenny actually is who I consider a childhood best friend, someone who thought I was weird and I thought he was weird, and so that developed this really great friendship over the years. So
are we going to tell that story?
I figured we may as well. I'm definitely not going to leave out the story in 7th grade where you were handing out little wallet snippets of yourself saying aliens exist and selling it as proof for 50 cents a pop.
Yo, I forgot that was I remember that, but I didn't remember when it happened.
So we have you can get these snacks at in the school cafeteria, like extra on top of your lunch. And Lenny had this gross addiction to the
nutty buddies. That's what they're called.
Nutty buddies. Yeah. The humiliation that he had, or the self-humiliation that he had to sell pictures of himself saying the aliens exist to score cash to be able to buy more Nutty Buddy bars.
Yeah, that was during a time when I really had no shame.
We're going to get into all of that today, folks. You stay pretty up to date on the episodes. And so I know you've heard the My Friend episodes that we've done so far. Mm-hmm. And we usually start off with talking about first memory. So just to recap for everyone else, mine was having woken up, having pissed the bed. Wes was playing with big Tonka trucks. Chris Peapod was being held by his mother and being sung to. And Mercedes, I wasn't sure. It was either being in a hospital waiting room while her baby brother was being born and hearing the scarring screams of her mother giving birth, or I forget the other memory.
It was like a lovely cake or something.
Oh yeah, she had the cake with the
gummies.
The gummies.
The gummies, yeah, and they were the best gummies that she had ever had, and we had all hoped that it was the gummy cake that she had had. So, Lenny, I want to ask you, what's yours?
So, my earliest memory that I can remember is actually kind of funny because it was me being annoyed. My parents, my mom and dad, before they had split up, had moved to Arizona, and the context is that one of my dad's really close friends also had moved out there, so we were moving out there with them, and I don't know anyways, we were going to their house for some goddamn reason, and I was really annoyed that I was there. I just remember walking up to their house and just being really annoyed that I had to go. I didn't want to go for some reason. I don't know why, but.
And how old were you?
I had to be maybe 3 or 4 at the time.
Wow. I couldn't even tell you the first time I remember being annoyed in my life, and you're starting life off being annoyed.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, I don't have any memories of me being mad or angry when I was younger. I'm sure it happened.
it really set the stage for the rest of my life. I'll tell you what.
I was going to say, is that like an omen of things to come?
Yeah, it definitely was.
You essentially consider yourself born and raised in the Midwest, right?
Well, I was born in the Midwest. I was born in Toledo. And then for reasons I'm sure we'll get into later, my parents moved out west and then moved back. And I spent, it used to be a majority of my life there, but not so much anymore.
Which you are now residing in where?
Tacoma, Washington. We're about 45-ish minutes south of Seattle. But if anybody asks, I just say the Seattle area, because if I say Tacoma, they're like, is that a truck? And that's about the extent of the conversation I get from that. So greater Seattle area.
So tell me about, man, Arizona sounds like a really cool place to be. But I'm sure you don't have too many memories of it, though.
No, like I said, just the traumatic parts.
Traumatic parts.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we start there, or do you want to warm up? So do you want to warm up and start somewhere fluffy?
No, let's get into the ugly parts.
Okay.
So my father was what we would call not a good husband. And I found this out like years later, obviously, that the reason we had moved out there is because my dad was sleeping around behind my mom's back. And the idea was they would, move out there to kind of get away from the drama of small towns, and start out new there. And I guess it went okay for a little while, because it's where I had my earliest memory. And then I guess I have just mostly happy memories of Arizona. I vaguely remember going to the Grand Canyon as a small child. I remember we were standing out on one of the lookout points, and you could see across the canyon there was like some switchback trails, and my dad was pointing out to me like, "Oh, look, you can see the people on the trail, and they've got the donkeys carrying their stuff," which was cool. The next prominent memory I have is my mom and I flew to Ohio for some reason. I don't know why we flew out, but my dad didn't come with us. I think it was a function of him working. And I remember being at the airport and just being distraught because I missed my dad and I wanted my dad to come with us, and I didn't understand why he couldn't come. And there's a nice old lady who was trying to help my mom get me to stop crying by offering me candy, and I just wanted nothing to do with that, and I was just continued to be inconsolable until we were on the plane for some amount of time. And I remember turning to my mom and going, "Is that old lady still here with the candy?" and my mom going, "No, she was not. She's not here." And I was just like, "Oh," and disappointed. And let's see, the next memory I have is another traumatic one. Is my mom and dad, they were fighting about something. I don't remember what it was. But I think it had to do with the reason they got divorced, which was my father's continued infidelity. Both my parents smoked at the time, smoked cigarettes, and they had this collection of stackable ashtrays. And I remember my dad, he was really angry, and he threw one on the ground and it smashed everywhere. And then he left, and I remember my mom crying and vacuuming up this shattered glass. And I was like, what, I didn't have the vocabulary at the time, but I recognize it now as me going, what the fuck is happening? Mm-hmm. And then we packed up a U-Haul truck, my mom and I, and we moved back cross country back to Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know what the time gap was between those two events, sure. But I just know that they happened.
Did your mom try to explain at all, or do you remember your mom trying to explain this to you at all as it was happening?
I don't remember that. I'm sure because Kevin, I mean, you've met my mom before. She's that kind of person who's very understanding and nurturing. So I'm sure she tried to at one point. I just don't remember that. And then actually, funny story, we drove through Oklahoma City like a day or two I think after the Oklahoma City bombing. I remember being in a motel room with my mom, and I remember she was on the phone with somebody. I can only assume it was like my grandma or one of my aunts, and her saying, yeah, we're fine. You know, we drove, we weren't even anywhere close to it, that sort of thing.
Wow.
And then the U-Haul we were driving, we were out in the middle of fucking nowhere on the highway, and the tire blew. Had a flat tire, and we didn't have the tools or like a spare tire on the truck to change it. So I remember sitting on the side of the road it had to have been a really long time before a tow truck was able to come get us. I don't know how the tow truck got there because this is way before cell phones.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe like a cop came by and I don't know, that's the only thing I can think of. But I remember the wind. We were out on the plains, and the wind was blowing so hard I thought like the truck was going to tip over. And that's something like my mom will talk about every once in a while, like if we get on the subject. So that's how I got my first tow truck ride. And then I don't remember us getting to Ohio. The next memories I have are just being in Ohio. For a long time, either I just didn't want to recognize, I didn't like want to know, or was just too young to know what exactly led to my parents splitting up, or even what sent them to Arizona in the first place. So I eventually just found that out through just conversations with family. And then eventually when I was in like my teenage years, my mom really kind of like I don't even remember what prompted it, but we eventually kind of like sat down and like talked it out a little bit. And she let me know like kind of like why, or what was happening and what was going on with that.
Cool. Wes, you got anything? You alive over there? Just quick pulse check for you.
Yeah, no, I'm alive. It's just a really interesting story. I get really quiet during these because I really like just sitting there and listening.
Wes likes making me be the nosy asshole.
You're really good at it.
I think it's a function of him having like an online alter ego, because at least from the time that I've known Wes in person, he's typically very loud and just loud. And
you used loud twice. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Not wrong though.
I think that's what's so funny though, is like when I asked Mercedes, I was like, was Wes the first American you ever met? And she goes, no, but he was definitely the loudest.
Yeah. I laughed out loud when I heard that.
Like everybody who knows Wes in real life is like, oh, ha, ha, ha. But like everyone who listens to the podcast and doesn't personally know Wes is like, huh?
Yeah. The first time that I listened to your guys' pod, like not because you guys did like the My Friend stuff, like first as like your first episodes for you and Wes. But since like then, like listening to the podcast, you have that kind of realization like, oh shit, like I don't really know this person anymore. They're a lot different than like they're a lot different now than they used to be when I interacted with them on a daily basis. And like hearing Wes be like really quiet and collected, I guess, is it was a real kind of slap in the face, not in like an insulting way, obviously, but just like a holy shit.
Don't be fooled. He still draws dicks.
I mean, yeah, but who doesn't?
Thank you.
like literally a month ago, I drew a dick on one of my coworkers' cars in his dust. It was literally a brand new car.
Well, then why was there dust on it?
Well, okay, it wasn't brand new. He bought it used, but like shocker, in Washington, it rains a lot, or at least on this side of the mountains anyways. So, there's just, road grime. And so I drew a dick on the passenger side of his car where I knew he wouldn't see it for a while. Because who honestly looks at the passenger side of their car like consciously?
With having a friend like Wes, I check mine out of paranoia.
Come on now. I want you to see the dick.
That's true. It's the other things that he doesn't want me to see. Like he still comes over. I don't know if you knew this, Lenny, but when he comes over, he will take random fruit or whatever and place it in places where it definitely does not go. I specifically, where this all started, just for the audience to know, was there was a banana.
Oh God!
That he put on one of the fan blades.
Anytime it starts with a banana.
And of course it was on a naturally hot day. So I eventually turned on the fan. The banana goes flying. I immediately look at him and he goes, "Oh, that don't go there."
Yes. Okay. So I've got a similar story with Wes. Remember when I first bought that Honda Civic and we were rolling down Main Street and then the car broke down? And
I remember that.
We pulled into the rec center parking lot and we popped the hood. We're trying to figure out, we couldn't, because like the car turned over, like it would go into gear and like everything worked out, but it just wouldn't go anywhere. And we popped the hood and it was like around fall time. So some leaves had fallen like into that. I don't know what the technical term is. Kevin, you might know this, but like where the hood meets like your windshield and like the vents are there.
Okay.
We popped the hood and Wes goes, "Oh, well, there's your problem. You got leaves in your engine." It's like, those aren't supposed to be there. And I think about that every single time I have to pop my hood for any reason at all. I go, "Oh, you got leaves in your engine. There's your problem."
Oh man. The things others take with them.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean,
it really is a blessing and a curse knowing Wes Shirley.
That's like quintessential Wes right there.
Yeah. I'm like, and my brain does it instinctively now. I'll look over. There's, for example, I have a misplaced can of dry shampoo over on the shelves because we're packing up because we're moving, and so everything is everywhere. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, "Oh, that don't go there." And of course, who do I think of when I say that? So I completely get it. Believe me. Moving on here, I do want to talk about. I don't want to leave out the fun things like your love for dinosaurs and all that fun stuff. From grade school and junior high and high school. Talk about that time in your life. Talk about how if you feel that there was any impact from your parents or your parents splitting. I don't remember when your stepdad came into the picture or anything like that, but just kind of talk about that very transitional point for a lot of people in their life.
Started grade school in Toledo Public, and I went there through kindergarten through first grade. It was also about the time I got hit by a car, and my mom she'd had some, I only remember one like really serious boyfriend before my stepdad. Once we had gotten like established into my grandparents' house in Perrysburg, I still really miss my dad. And to my mom's credit, when I was younger, she never like spoke bad of him. And I'm sure there was a lot she wanted to say, but for my sake, she didn't, which is really admirable. And not many people even today do that.
Yeah.
So, she was usually very comforting during those times. And that sucked, but, eventually my dad did move back to Ohio as well. And I would see him on the weekends. So that made things okay. And that was fine in my mind. I don't remember ever like not being content with that. I knew that about this time, like, for like kindergarten, first grade, like I understood that my parents were divorced, and that they would see other people, which I don't remember it bothering me. I'd have to talk to my mom about it, honestly, to know if that's 100% the truth. But I don't remember it bothering me. So, I think the summer between first and second grade was when it got really serious between my mom and my stepdad. I just remember like in some of the mind friend things that like people would stray away from names. So I didn't want to like have like a faux pas. But my mom's name is Denise. My stepdad is Charlie. My dad is Larry. For those of you who want to know. But that was about so that time between first and second grade is when it got pretty serious between my mom and Charlie. And I think we were still living in Toledo at the time. And then, no, it had to be sooner than that. Anyways, before I started second grade, we moved to Rossford, which is where Kevin, you and I would eventually meet. And
who were you?
Yeah, right. Right. My mom, being with Charlie, that never, instead of my dad, that was never like a thing that I remember bothering me. So he's been in my life for a really long time, for the good and the bad. And then I was in Rossford, where I would meet you, Kevin, and a couple of other really good friends. Shout out to Michael. What up, bro?
Yeah, how's it going, man? I don't know that he's a listener.
Yeah, I don't know if he is either, but maybe he'll hear this. Kevin, I don't remember, like, I know the story that you tell, but I don't remember us becoming friends. I don't even remember like Michael and I becoming friends. It's just that I know that throughout second grade and going forward, you've always been in my social circle in one way or another.
It's funny while we're talking about it. I've got I have the distinct memory between Michael and Lenny. Michael's was when we were first moving into the current house that my parents are in now, and his dad lives across the street from this house. And so and Michael's parents are split, by the way, just for context. And I remember going up to him when he and Lenny were playing, and I had said, hey Michael, guess what? I'm moving in. And he goes, hey, Kevin, guess what? I'm moving out, because his parents were splitting at the time. The earliest memory I have with Lenny, and I think that's a really good way to describe it too, is it just kind of happened, you know what I mean? But I think the first actual memory that I think I have that like involved Lenny was in second grade, when we would say the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of the school day. And I noticed that Lenny, when we said the Pledge of Allegiance, I noticed that Lenny would salute the flag. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do that too. And so there was one day where I did it, and I looked over at him, and he's like shaking his head like he's got fucking Tourette's or something. And I was like, oh shit. I guess only certain people are supposed to do that. Like I had no idea. And I don't know why that sticks with me, but it came to mind fresh and fruity right there.
Like I had Tourette's. Kevin, I remember the first memory I have of you is I remember you just talking about Massachusetts a lot, and hold on, time out. Speaking about that, why isn't it like a Midwest man? I've been wanting to ask this question, and I feel like putting you on the spot right now is a really good way to do that. Why isn't it? Why? Like I know why it's Massachusetts man. I listened, I heard the rationale, but why don't you have a Midwest man segment?
Wes, it's your turn to talk, buddy.
Well, why does it have to be a Midwestern man? We're two Midwestern men. So Massachusetts, I like. No one even talks about Massachusetts. The only thing I know from Massachusetts is Boston, and I didn't even know Boston was in Massachusetts for like most of my life. So like Massachusetts man's good as any other.
The story Kevin always tells is he would, I don't even understand like the context of it, but he would just be like, oh, well, because I was like a big dinosaur head at the time, like kind of embarrassingly amount how much I like dinosaurs for even as like little kid standards go. And I guess Kevin really liked trains at the time, and he always tells people, well, we're friends because one day he saw me, he's like, well, he really likes dinosaurs and I like trains, so we should be best friends. Which, you know, makes a lot of sense when you're 12, or not even 12, like 8.
It's like those guys who try to find any sort of common ground when they're interested in somebody they find attractive. Like they go to the grocery store and they're like, I see you're shopping in the produce section. I too shop in the produce section. Perhaps sometime we can get together and both shop in the produce section. Shit like that. And I think like as kids, especially males, as kids, it's like, oh, he has something that he likes. I have something that I like. Let's see if we can combine the two. It's like the YouTube channel Will It Blend before the YouTube channel Will It Blend.
That's fair. That's fair. I remember in grade school, Kevin, you would bring, I don't know how long you did this. I think up to like maybe like 4th grade, you continued to do this, but every day you would bring in a copy of the Toledo Blade, and you would like, because we had like a reading class, that's what you would bring in for reading. It was like hardly ever a book. It was always the goddamn newspaper.
That explains so much.
Doesn't it explain so much? And I'll tell you why even more now. So, why I always read the news. It was for 2 reasons. It was for 2 reasons. One was I wanted to feel smart, and I thought it made me look smart and more adultish and more grown up and more mature. But I think the other thing was a newspaper had a bunch of stories. So if I was reading a story that I didn't like, I could go and read a different story. Versus like in a book, I felt trapped within that book.
It was something that like stuck out and has like always stuck out in my memory about you, is that you would bring a newspaper to reading class.
Yeah, see, that's when I didn't have a social radar, and anxiety wasn't a thing. So it was impossible to care about what other people think. I wouldn't do that today. So let's talk about this trauma when it happens to others, but not to me, and finding it funny. Where do you think that came from?
I think it's because I'm of French descent.
Dead silence. Like what?
No, it's for me, it's definitely a coping mechanism. I should probably, I know that I need to go to therapy and that I've got a lot of unresolved shit. But just laughing has always been one of my go-to coping mechanism. Like a teacher losing his shit and like throwing desks and chairs, not only just about but at students, should be terrifying. But I thought it was funny, and I was always that little asshole, and where if I would like egg people on to like get like the funniest, what I thought was the funniest reaction, or like to get like reactions kind of like Wes used to, referring to what you've said, and you're my friend, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Used to is a bit of an overstatement, but yeah.
I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, man. But like, because I wanted to get a reaction out of people, I stopped. I would say that I stopped caring, I guess. I wasn't really conscious of it, but you know, I wanted to be seen not as necessarily as like the class clown, but as kind of like a wild card where nobody ever really knew what I was going to do. Kevin, I'm sure that you suffered this more than probably I did, but I got picked on and bullied a lot throughout school in general. being ugly or having like dumb clothes, or because I like dinosaurs too much, even as a younger kid, I wanted to try and find like an identity for myself. I think again, it's not something I was really conscious of at the time, but I wanted to stand out for something at least, because people seemed in my mind, people singled me out and I stood out to people for their own reasons, but I wanted to have my own reason for standing out that was born of me and not somebody else's like perception.
So Lenny, before we get to the break, I do want to talk about high school, a very, very pivotal and potentially life-changing time for a lot of us. Talk about that, some of the experiences you had and how that shaped you, or how you feel that might have shaped you.
Well, high school was where I was first aware that I was depressed. And or at least what I think is depression. I've never been clinically diagnosed, but I'm self-aware enough to know that I am depressed and deal with depression. But high school was rough. I don't remember a lot of events from high school, except for my senior year. Most of high school was just a general feeling of being overwhelmed and underwater a lot of the time. I was also at this time in my life having some pretty big issues at home. I didn't really get along with my stepdad. I had issues with lying. I was like a habitual liar, and unfortunately, I was scarily good at it because nobody knew when I was lying. I was that convincing, which I've had to make like a real conscious effort to not do that because it became so second nature. I would lie for no goddamn reason. And that's kind of where the depression came from, is because like I wasn't bad at school generally. I knew that I was smart enough and I retained information well enough to pass my tests with flying colors, but I just was so bored with it. The day-to-day work just meant nothing to me, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't think I had to do it because, like I said, I knew enough to do well on my tests. But that doesn't necessarily bode well for parents. They didn't, especially my stepdad, he didn't give a shit if I could do well on the tests if the rest of my grades were suffering because I wasn't doing classwork or schoolwork. I mean, to his credit, he was right about, but it didn't really get expressed in the most healthy way possible. I don't think we need to go there, but there were some standout moments, I guess. Similar, like I had a teacher, Mr. DeMars, who Kevin, I know you had. Wes, I think you had him too for a class or two, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
so I had him for American experience and social problems. And I really looked up to Mr. DeMars. He was, to me, a person that I wanted to be like. I thought he thought of things in a very analytical way. At the time, I thought it was almost like computer-like, which is how in seeing him, I wanted to emulate that and be that, and just, and to view the world in, as like a net sum game, like essentially did the ends justify the means, because that's kind of the way he presented his classes. And it's kind of dystopian to think about it now like that, but that's how I tried to conduct myself through high school. Is going through all this nonsense to what I thought it was nonsense at the time, is this worth it? And a lot of times it just didn't seem worth it to me. And God, I wish I had not done that. I wish so much I had not done that, because I really set myself back and I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. Yeah, I wish I would have just done the fucking homework.
Do you feel like it's because you weren't challenged, or do you feel like you already knew what you were being taught? Or
A little bit of both. I for sure did not feel challenged at all, except for like math, because I've never been really good at math. It took me like I failed Algebra 1 my freshman year, and that was in part due to bad teaching, but because like when I'm learning something, yeah, I'm like a hands-on and like visual person, but something that to learn something for me, I have to understand why something is the way it is. And math, as I've always been taught it, has been a very it just is sort of thing, which doesn't really make sense to me. So, you know, when I would ask my bad algebra teacher, okay, well, why does this do this? And he would just say, well, because it just is. And I would be like, that doesn't make any sense. Does not compute. But for everything else, I just did not feel challenged. Kevin, I don't know if we had any classes together a lot during that time, but for example, we had mythology together and we had English together our sophomore year.
Yep.
And I'm sure, so maybe you do or don't remember this, but it would take me like, we'd get a test and I'd be done like 10, 15 minutes before anybody else would be done, you know, in both classes. It just was not something that I had to think about. Taking the past knowledge and applying it to new situations, that was never a problem for me. Understanding cause and effect has never been a problem for me. So science, English, any of those other subjects were just a walk in the park. French kicked my ass. I did take French for 2 years.
We had French together too.
Yes, we did. We had French freshman year together. And we weren't allowed to sit near each other after so long.
Gee, I fucking wonder why.
Because we figured out like what the phrase like, and I can't remember what it is now, but we would essentially just tell each other that we had been farting back and forth to each other, and she split us up. But yeah, so I mean, French kind of kicked my ass, but I also didn't take that seriously, as serious as I should have. So French 2 really sucked, but everything else was absolutely nothing to me. So just the feeling of not being challenged and already knowing a lot of it, because I really like trivia. So like learning things on my own, I would like just come across this knowledge and I would be like, okay, well, I already know this.
Is there anything else that you would say in particular made high school such a challenge for you from a non-academic standpoint?
Because all seniors took government, in my government class happened to be like first period of the day, I think. I stood up when our teacher handed out our it was like a popular, you would write in like who you thought it should be, like 3 names for a king and queen. I stood up. I was like, everybody should vote for me for prom king. It would probably be the best for everybody, or something to that effect. And then throughout the rest of the day, I would just, between classes, I would just yell out, vote Lenny Wells for prom king, vote Lenny Wells for prom king. And I like, it happened. It was prom king our senior year. And that's not that wasn't the point where like things like kind of turned around, but just realizing that I didn't care what people thought, really, really did it. You know, I had a solid core friend group, you know, between you, Matt, Benny, and I think also at the time, a lot of our classmates were starting to like mature and realize like, oh shit, you know, like we're not really kids anymore. And that kind of helped, I think, but I just stopped caring what people thought about me. And I don't, to this day, like that's kind of an attitude that I adopt, unless I need somebody to like me for like job reasons.
Pretty good reason.
Yeah. So, but other than that, like I just don't give a shit. I think what really drove that home was graduation. the administration had because we had the valedictorian speech and the salutatorian speech were just given, but they also opened it up for 2 other people to give speeches at graduation. And I ended up being the last person to speak at graduation, which to a lot of people was like an, oh shit, what's going to happen moment. In fact, our assistant principal, who is now a disgraced former administrator, he even pulled me aside like right before like we walked, and he said, if you do anything fucking stupid, you won't get this diploma. And I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, like you got my speech. but I don't know if he like expected me to like just do something like totally off the wall, like outside of outside of the plan. But I was the only person at our graduation to get a standing ovation. Like everybody, got claps, and one person got like an awkward, like, okay, that was a speech, clap. But I gave my speech, and like everybody like lost their shit, which was, I think, like my like proudest achievement up to that point.
Yeah, what a moment, really.
That was really cool, and I think about it. Not a lot, but often enough, because like it reminds me that when I'm just who I am, and I'm not trying to live up to anybody's expectations, that's where when I'm at my best. Because truly, I don't think really anybody had any expectation of what I was going to do when I walked up there, especially the administrators. They were, like I said, our assistant principal was very nervous about me going up there. And I think some of the other people in that room who knew me really well were like, this is going to be interesting. And it really wasn't. I think I just really gave a really good speech.
And I think that's the best way you could have told those people to shut it.
Yeah. All in all, like the time I spent in high school was pretty shitty. I had some really profound personal struggles. So when I was a senior, I ended up having a baby with somebody way before I was even like ready to, with a girl that I had been dating at another school. And it was, that was a really tough time. Being in high school, being a senior in high school, where you're supposed to be planning, your future. It didn't make it any easier. Still kind of dealing with it to this day. So I don't really have anything more to say on that. Not because I don't want to talk about it. I just don't know what else to say.
Is when you say it's an ongoing issue,
I don't like have like triggers from it anymore. It used to be a really sore subject that I just never wanted to talk about. This child's birthday for a long, I felt like I was in mourning for a long time disclaimer, the child is fine. Her mother and I gave her up for adoption. She has a very loving household. She's happy and healthy. But it was just like, I had this like preconceived notion of what like parenthood should be, because for a long time at that point, I had a really absent father. My dad had been in and out of prison every couple of years. He'd go to prison for something. And like I said, at the time, like I was having some issues at home with my stepdad and I not like getting on because I was, for reasons. But so like the person and parent that I wanted to be, I just felt like was shattered for a long time. Like I said, it felt like I was mourning something that I had lost, not necessarily the child, but just who I thought I should be, or who I wanted to be. And it's still painful sometimes. But and there's every once in a while, not very often, like I can't even put like a time frame on it, but sometimes it's just a bad day to think about it. It really damaged some relationships with significant others, because like I didn't know how to deal with it or how to cope for a really long time. And I think that I deal with it better now because it's just been so long and I've had a lot of time to think about it and come to terms with it. But maybe it's not. I think, it's something that eventually when I do get to go to therapy will come up, but
I don't mean to sound like a therapist, but thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Coming up on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about what got him out of the Midwest and why he won't come the hell back. Stick around.
Why do you gotta say it like that? All right, welcome back from the break to the Life Midwest podcast, where you have me, Lenny, aka Derpadoo, talking to these two idiots, Kevin and Wes. I'm sorry, they're not idiots. They're really nice people, but they couldn't think of an intro to come back on the break from, so you've got me instead. Anyways, let's get right back into it.
Thanks for that, Lenny.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, if you're looking for ways to support us, coming back from the break, intros included. We do have we do have socials. You can reach out to us at the Life Midwest. You can also reach out to us via email at support@thelifemidwest.com. Always looking forward to hear from folks there. Leave us a review on iTunes. We'd love the feedback. Let us know what you like and what you don't like. Tell us your favorite Massachusetts man story. Give us an update on the bagel fiasco from McDonald's. I don't know, literally whatever you hear on the show. That's what we're here for. So, Lenny, I really enjoyed talking so far about life, your life, the Midwest, even the parts of it that don't involve the Midwest. How you hanging, bud?
I'm pretty good. We haven't gotten to those parts yet. Well, I mean, we kind of did, I guess, with Arizona, but
I was mostly not into Arizona. Yeah. Wes, you still doing all right, bud? Haven't heard much from you today.
Oh, just chilling as always, sitting back, taking in some good story. That's all I'm here for. I just like the stories.
Lenny, I want to talk about post high school. Kind of picking up where we left off, and I think it's always interesting to talk about this with people who've experienced depression like symptoms in high school. Because I feel like you get to this point in your early 20s where we spend so much time wanting to grow up, and then we grow up, and then we get there, and then we go, oh, that's it? I'm just curious if you had that moment, or if you've had those feelings, or had those, how you kind of work through and navigate those. Kind of wrap that in there as you talk about life after high school and kind of leading into your 20s.
Oh, sure, because it gets a lot worse. So after high school, I didn't have the grades or the money to go to college. And I didn't want to go massively in debt. But at the same time, I always wanted to join the military in some capacity. It's almost a family tradition. There's been somebody from my mom's side of the family in the military since before this country was a country. So, and then like my grandfather, he went to Korea during the Korean War. My uncles were in during the first desert storm. My dad was special forces. He was stationed in Germany for a while. My stepdad, he was also stationed in Korea, but not during the Korean War. And so it was just always something that I had wanted to do. If it wasn't for the Army, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Let's talk about that.
My first duty station in the military was in Texas, in a little shithole called Killeen, at a base you may have heard from called Fort Hood. Among military members, it has a reputation of being the hood, and it certainly lives up. So from there, I went to Iraq for a year, which sucked. I went back to Texas after that, but we did a whole unit transfer up to the state of Washington, Joint Base Lewis McChord, which I fucking loved because it was everything that was the opposite of Texas and the Middle East. There was trees, it was green, it rained, had like actual weather. So I was super stoked to come up here. Got out of active duty in 2013 and stayed in a reserve component of some kind up until 2017. But when I got out of active, I could go literally anywhere I want. I could have actually moved back to the Midwest, but Kevin, you can attest to this. Where we come from is a very small place, and a lot of people don't really ever leave. And then what do? They bitch and complain about being stuck. And I didn't want that. I had the Midwest, I would say, is traditionally a very conservative place, and as far as thinking, not just politically, but just like as far as traditions go, and interacting with family and people that I went to high school with through mainly Facebook, that cancer. I didn't want to go back to the Midwest, not because I don't love my family or love where I grew up. Hell, the first thing in my Twitter bio is OHIO, because I even though Ohio can be a shitty place to be from, I'm still proud of where I'm from and where I grew up. And I would like to eventually move back to the Midwest, because all my family's there, but I wanted to live somewhere that was more progressive in its ideology, I guess. For example, like right now I'm on family medical leave because my daughter was just born, and the state of Washington pays 80% of your average income for up to 12 weeks. So I get to take 12 weeks of paid family leave, and you don't get that a lot of hardly anywhere else.
Yeah,
especially not in the Midwest.
Yeah,
I live near like a music hub. There's a lot of art that goes on here, and it's just culturally diverse. I didn't want to regret not taking the opportunity, and I didn't want to be stuck in my hometown for the rest of my life and then bitch and complain that I didn't go anywhere else. I didn't want to sit at Moe's when I am 40 and think, I really hate it here, but I can't go anywhere else. And it's a sentiment that I see even like still when on the rare occasions that I do get on Facebook. Every once in a while I'll see somebody we went to school with or knew growing up, like wishing that they didn't live where they, in the Midwest or in Ohio where they live. So, that's why I live out here now, and I met my wife and got a family out here. And I met my wife in a way that is pretty unexpected, actually. Kevin, I don't think I've actually ever told you this story.
It's one of those things where I think I know it, but I have a feeling I'm about to find out that I don't actually know it.
So my wife and I, we kind of ran in the same social circle, and we had met each other, but she doesn't actually remember meeting me for the first time. We met at a function. I'll call it a party for now, because there's not really a better word. It was like a benefit sort of thing. And she, through no fault of her own, ended up running it for the person that was supposed to be doing the function. So she was too busy to talk to anybody, but I remember meeting her, and I was like, wow, she's pretty cool. But she didn't remember meeting me. But then I ended up being in a physical relationship with one of her friends. One Halloween, I came in, this person that I was seeing physically was like, hey, I'm a little bit drunk. Will you pick me up and take me back to your place? And I was like, hell yeah. So I arrived at the bar, and Brittany happened to be there. And she tells me that when she saw me come in, she was immediately jealous of this person. At that point, we had been online friends only. But then we started actually purposely hanging out at the same time one day, one night. a group of friends and because we live in the state of Washington, Twilight was a thing still at that time, where we thought it would be hilarious to like ironically go to Forks, Washington, and like make a day trip out of it. So, we did that. Brittany ended up not going because she was mad at somebody else that was supposed to go there with us, and she didn't want to be around them. But when we got back, she sent me a text. She's like, "Hey, I'm at this bar. We're doing karaoke. Get everybody else to come with you." So I did. We, a bunch of us went and did karaoke, and then we all had a little too much to drink and ended up at a different friend's house after the bar closed. And we were just like watching like movies and TV and hanging out. She's sitting next to me on the couch, and our friend happened to have a spare bedroom. And shout out to everybody that doesn't know this story and is about to figure out exactly how my wife and I met. So she goes she's like, "I'm going to go like sleep. I'm super drunk. I'm just going to go to bed." And I was like, "All right, well, have a good night." And I was sitting on the couch. About 5 minutes later, she texts me. She's like, "You can, if you want, you can come lay down." Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go lay down with you. Yeah. But one thing led to another, and then we started dating. And now we're married almost 6 years. 3 kids, one that she brought along for the ride, and 2 that we've made ourselves. And yeah,
that's incredible. 6 years already. Wow.
I know.
Good for you guys.
And we've had some good times. We've had some really rough times, and she's learned that the standard iPhone alarm she can't use as an alarm because one of the things that I walked away with from the military was a good case of PTSD. There was, when I was in Iraq, we would get the base itself, like, was never like, this isn't the right word, but quote unquote invaded. Like, there wasn't people that ever like drove up to the base and like tried to get in and kill everybody. Instead, what they would do is they would shoot mortars, basically like cannons at us. And it usually like almost exclusively happened at night. Normally what would happen is like maybe once or twice a week, we'd get like a mortar attack. And, we'd have to get up and go to the bomb shelters or the bunkers or whatever. And then come August, it was literally every fucking night, sometimes twice a night for a fucking month. And goddamn, did that suck. But the reason she can't use the standard iPhone alarm is because that's the same sound that we heard every night when we get bombed. So we'd hear an and that means, run for your life. And that's also the standard iPhone alarm. So the first time she stayed the night at my place and had to use the alarm to wake up, I freaked the fuck out.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was kind of rough. Yeah, PTSD is no joke. And I should probably go to therapy for that too. But the VA is a real joke of a healthcare system. So, but so that's how a Midwesterner ended up on the not Midwest.
And I really commend you for wanting to make a change and seeing, what other people go through, and, not, maybe regretting isn't the best word, but, regretting never leaving and then just feeling stuck. And you see that and not wanting to do that. And I just really commend that choice. I know that's probably a big risk to take. And, it seems like it turned out well for you, though.
For the most part, yeah. It was you're not wrong. It was a super huge risk to take because at the time I had no safety net. If I fucked up and, things fell to shit, I didn't have, my parents, obviously, I don't have any family out here. So like if I needed to like move in with somebody, I couldn't, and there's a couple times that almost happened. But, I was just lucky enough to not have to deal with that.
I don't know what time period this is because like the early 2010s are all just a blur to me. But at some point, It was either before you got deployed or before you came back, or like after you came back to the Midwest for some amount of time. There was a party happening at Michael's dad's bar.
At his bar.
Like I picked you up at some point and everyone was saying their goodbyes and I'm just like, Lenny, you're a hero. Like just being a facetious asshole. And you're like, no, stop. And I felt real bad. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, no, I'll just vomit on you if you keep doing that.
Speaking of heroes, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. It's time for our shout outs. Wes, what do you got this week, buddy?
Shout out to that manager of the manager who let Lenny go to sleep, because that's a real one right there. And that's all I got.
Lenny, what do you got, man?
I just want to say thanks for having me on, guys. Shout out to you guys for having a great podcast, and shout out to anybody that's ever met me in any non-superficial capacity for helping essentially create the person I am today. And thanks for, at the very least, tolerating me. Go to therapy, kids, because it's good to go, even if you don't think you need to.
Oftentimes, it is the people. Oftentimes, we go to therapy because of people who should go to therapy. I'd like to give a special shout out to Rocky's, which is the aforementioned bar. I'd love to give a shout out, of course, to Lenny for being at the $5 level of Patreon there and buying his tacos as he does. And for being on today's episode. You've given me a lot of work to do, but that's all right, because that's what I'm here for. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. Want to give a big shout out to moms. I do this every week now, but call your mom. Just call your mom. Tell her you love her.
Yeah, call your mom. What the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, call your mom. Come on. Don't be a dick. Call your mom. Folks, other than that, we're going to leave it there. It's your boy Kevin, it's your buddy Wes, and special shout out, thanks again to Lenny for joining us this week. We will see you all next Saturday. Take care, folks.
Have me on more.
Deuces.